Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending today. We're just going to start in a second. Just wanted to in order for y'all to get your attendance, you're going to have to wait till the end, and we'll tell you what to do for it. But I will hand it over to Stephen Burrow.
I appreciate that. We'll have some people kind of joining in, which is no problem. So for y'all who don't know, this is going to be the spring 2021 Best Foot Forward interview discussion panel. I'm hosted by CIAC. Again, I'm Stephen Burrow with ISC. I work in project controls here at Baton Rouge at Exxon facility. And I'm the chair of the Student Enhancement Committee for CIAC. So what we do is kind of just help you guys prepare for CID on Thursday, kind of give you some guidelines, kind of on basic interview skills, expectations, body language, dress code, your current social media, and then we'll just kind of have some open discussion at the end. So if everybody wants to just save their questions to the end, we'll have an open discussion chat, which Jessica Miller will kind of assist us with. But again, I just want to say thank you to all of you kind of showing up. One of the most famous quotes that I think is very important in construction is the most important ability you can show is availability. So by you guys showing up, it shows that you're very interested in this and really want to work towards CID and pursuing a great future. On this call as well, we have Katie Burke with Excel. She's their HR corporate coordinator. We also have Abby Christensen with MMR, who's their local recruiter in the Baton Rouge area. And we also have Adam Landry with Pala, who kind of operates on their Eastern region with their tank operations. So with that all being said, we'll kick off with Adam, and he'll kind of break you down with some skills and some resume building.
Yeah, so I kind of put together a few slides, and it's a few basic things that I've been through CID, both as a student a couple times and then also as representing a company. So kind of jotted down some quick notes that, I think too many times, too many people get too nervous and think too much about it, and try to keep it simple, right? So preparation, obviously, prepare your paperwork, prepare your appearance. I know a little bit later we'll talk about that some more, but just coming in and having a good, calm demeanor about yourself goes a long way. You're going to want to make sure you research the company that you're talking to. You want to understand a little bit about what they do and then also what positions they might have available. And the biggest thing that I kind of wanted to talk about here was don't try to guess and memorize your answers 100%, because if all of a sudden you get thrown off a little bit, I've seen too many people kind of forget exactly what they want to say, and it just kind of, stops them up. But so maybe have some concepts or ideas that a good starting point. You can put little notes down on your paper, right? Your paper that you're going in to talk with them about. Just have a few notes to kind of be able to expand on some concepts in case they ask you some questions. Just think about it, but don't try to memorize an answer. Obviously, during an interview, arrive early. Now, I know a lot of stuff is virtual now, so just make sure you've got your computer up and running, you're ready to go, and respect their time, right? You want to be organized. You don't want to look disheveled, or you don't want to have paperwork all spread out kind of in front of you. Have a good, clean, I guess for virtual, visual view of what you want them to look at. I guess in person, you just want to look put together, smile, introduce yourself, and stay engaged. And that kind of goes back to memorizing answers. One thing I've seen a few times is somebody forgets the exact answer they want to say, and then you can just kind of tell they're in their own head, and you're talking with them, you're trying to be engaged with them, and you're not getting it back. That's a big thing to make sure you're making eye contact and staying engaged in the conversation. And just thank them for their time, right? Especially with CID, virtual and even in person. There's a lot of time and effort going into the companies to be there to interview. So, appreciate and respect their time. But overall, your whole job with, you're going interview is basically show them your qualifications. You got the right attitude. You're intelligent, which, you're coming out of LSU's CM program. And then, how you maybe you're compatible with either their company or the position that they have available. All right, that was really all I had on basic interview skills. I mean, you don't want to overthink it too much. Resume, seen a bunch of them. You know, just make sure this one sounds kind of funny and you kind of think it doesn't happen. Make sure your contact information is accurate. Too many times I've seen it's either an old apartment number, you know, parents' house that they no longer live there, or maybe an incorrect phone number. I mean, you don't have to have your address, but I've seen that a few times where it's a wrong phone number, or you know, it's since changed email, something along those lines. Keep it relevant. I know a lot of people say 1 page. I'm fine. You know, if you've got enough experience and items that are on there are actually relevant experience, not just listing out a bunch of duties that you've had in the past, maybe, but you want to keep it to a nice, clean, easy to read format. Have somebody, you know, utilize a peer review. Spelling and grammar errors, it sounds basic, but it happens a lot. And you want to stay factual and specific. You know, a lot of y'all coming out of college, you know, you've had internships, maybe you haven't had internships, maybe you've just been in a few student organizations. Stay factual with what you know and what you've done. Don't, you know, if you haven't completely run the company by yourself, don't pretend you have. You know, I mean, people are there and they know what you've done and what you probably haven't. So you want to stay factual. I always like on a physical interview to bring extra copies. I like to print mine on nicer paper. I know most of the time for CID, they always kind of have them printed out, but I think it's a good touch. And you want to stand out and be professional. Again, that goes back to your appearance, how you're talking, how you're making eye contact. You want to make sure that your resume is easy to read. Again, going back to staying factual and staying relevant. And then I really like to kind of frame it up with listing accomplishments, not just necessarily your duties of your experience. I mean, anybody can list off a bunch of duties, but if you aren't able to show that you were proficient at what you were doing or how you maybe helped, I mean, you're basically just describing jobs you've had. So just kind of think of it from that way. And that's kind of my top few tips for resumes and interviews. So.
Hey, sorry, it's Jess again. So we saw that some of the people were in the waiting room, didn't get let in. And so at the very end, y'all just missed one slide, and we can go back, or if y'all have any questions. But we'll let you know at the end on how you can get your attendance. I'm so sorry about that, guys. So you just missed one slide, and we'll get back to that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I'm going to be talking a little bit about body language as well as question expectations. The first thing about question expectations that I would say is just to expect the unexpected, and just to do your research and be as prepared as possible before your interview. It looks really good to a company, and if you know at least what they do, maybe some of their latest projects, the more that you know about them, the better your interview is likely to go. So this means go to their website, check out their About Us section, watch their info videos, see any of their latest projects that they're working on. And something to remember here is that you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So going with that, think about like your ideal career and where you would like to be in the next 5 to 10 years, and see when you go to the interview, if that's going to be a company that can help you reach your goals. So what I would suggest doing is having about 3 to 5 questions prepared to ask. This also goes back to showing that you've done your research about the company. And then here you can also get a little creative. There's nothing wrong with a specific question. But I have some general ones listed on the screen where it's like, where do you see this company in the next 5 years? If hired for this position, what could I do to make the biggest difference? Questions like that, you can't really go wrong with. But like I said, it looks good too to be more specific with questions as well. And then no matter what the question that's asked, always find a way to tie it back into your skills, abilities, accomplishments, anything, because that's what the interviewer is ultimately trying to find out. So yeah, any way that you can tie that back is going to benefit you in the long run. That's all I have for question expectations. Okay, and then when it comes to body language, I think is something that's kind of a little bit overlooked. It's not something that you always think about whenever you're going to an interview, but it is still very important to think about. With that, the goal is to always think about portraying like your confidence. Make sure you're sitting up straight in your chair. You avoid swaying, rocking, slouching. That's something that your employer is going to be looking at, especially when it comes to virtual nowadays. That's always still true. Avoid fidgeting, twirling your hair, playing with your jewelry, tapping your legs or touching your face. All of those are kind of distractions during your interview. And then I would also say to use kind of active listening. Make sure you're nodding whenever they're asking you a question, or just to show that you're understanding the question, and to make eye contact as well. And a tip that I would say with this is to practice with your friends and family, maybe have them come up with interview questions for you and then record yourself, and then you can play it back and see what body language you're portraying, because a lot of times you just don't realize how you're coming off to another person. And then at the end, just take a deep breath if needed. You don't always have to jump into the answer right away. It's okay to take a pause and then give a thought out answer. Yeah, that's all I have for body language.
I'm going to talk about presenting the best you virtually. You may not realize it, but showing up to a job interview, you want to look your best just like you were there in person. So that means, dressing your best. Men, that's a clean button-up shirt. You can tell in a video if you're wearing a jacket. Ladies, you want to wear a blouse, not a t-shirt or a tank top. I suggest that you select your clothes in advance and kind of set up your background and see how it looks on video, so that you're prepared ahead of time and you don't have to stress about that the morning of. Don't forget about personal grooming. You don't want to look like you just rolled out of bed for your interview, even though you can do it from your bed. You want to make a good first impression. It can be challenging, but consider that bright colors are intensified on camera. You don't want flashy or distracting jewelry. Again, not only because you'll fidget with it, but it takes away from the eye contact that you're trying to make with the person you're interviewing with. And your background, you want contrast between yourself and your background. So, I'm at home, but I made sure that, there's no fan running. There's not people walking in the background. You want the focus to be strictly on you. So some pre-interview setup tips. Find out what format they're going to be using, whether it's Zoom or Teams or Skype. I don't know if it's across the board one program is being used or not, but whatever it is, make sure that you've got it installed and it's working properly before your interview. Again, set up your interview space in a quiet area. You want natural light if possible. You want to make sure that the light is coming in front of you and not from behind you, because that tends to shadow you and they can't see you as well. You know, check your appearance in the background as if you were speaking to the interviewer. You want to have your screen at eye level. It's very hard when you're talking to a screen and you're on screen not to look at yourself. You want to look at the camera while you're speaking because it's the same as if you were making eye contact with your interviewer. Again, the background noise and distraction to a minimum. You know, any pets, family members, roommates, you want to ask them to give you some time to get through your interviews. All right, and then lastly, I think we skipped back. All right, so lastly, we're going to talk about social media. You know, when you go for interviews, a lot of times companies, the people that you're going to be interviewing with will give you a Google search. So you want to make sure that the information that you want them to know about you is easy to find. So that means, you know, checking your profile photos, anything that could come up in a search is what you want them to see. I suggest that you go and search yourself and see what's out there and kind of clean that up if at all possible. You know, make a LinkedIn account, have a professional photo. You know, it doesn't have to be done in a studio, but, you know, dress nice like you would for an interview and ask a friend to snap a picture of you. You know, go and follow topics and companies that interest you, and don't be afraid to reach out and, you know, send connection requests on LinkedIn to the people that you're interviewing with or people at companies and positions that, you know, you see yourself in one day, and, you know, ask questions like, how did they get their job? You know, let them know that you're a student, you're interviewing with their company and you're interested and you have some questions. Would they mind answering them? You know, people like to talk about their experience, and it can go a long way in building relationships that you'll use, you know, throughout your career. You know, your personal social media accounts, you want to make sure that those are all set to private. And again, you know, anything that's out there, it's things that you want people to be able to find, not things that, you know, you may regret. And that wraps up social media.
Let's go back to, the Adam, if you're okay. Can we go over your first slide again?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so which I guess the other presenters have kind of hit much better than I hit on a lot of these topics, but it was just kind of brief. My whole approach to interviews and especially interview skills and resumes is try to keep it simple. You are at an interview for a position, for a job, but at the end of the day, you're trying to, you know, you're speaking with a person, you're telling about yourself. So you want to stay professional. You want to keep it basic. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to make it too confusing. So biggest thing you can do is be prepared with your paperwork and your appearance. You know, research the company and organization, as we are talking about a little bit earlier. And as you're researching, you're doing your research outside of your interview, you can take notes that you bring into the interview with you, right? You can jot little notes down and kind of remind yourself. I mean, you'll probably be, you know, if you're lucky, interviewing with a couple of companies that day for CID, you might have, you know, you don't want to jumble them up and get them all confused. So write a few notes down. It's okay for you to look at some notes. It's not a big deal. Don't try to memorize your answers. I really think if you're trying to think of what they might ask you, that's great. You know, prepare for it, but think of good concepts and ideas that you're able to expand upon instead of just a memorized verbatim answer of, you know, what you want it to perfectly sound like, because sometimes they'll trip you up. During the interview, make sure you arrive early, make sure whatever platform you're using, you know, you're ready to go. be organized again, smile, introduce yourself, and stay engaged with eye contact through the camera, especially if you're on virtual. It's a little harder to do, but make an effort, and make sure you thank the person interviewing you for their time and just talking with you, because it's taking time out of their day also. Overall, your whole goal is to convince an employer that you have 4 qualities. You're qualified, you've got a great attitude, you're intelligent, and you're compatible, to the job they have, possibly their company, maybe some skills you have or a solution to something they need. So that wrapped up my basic interview skills.
Thanks, Adam. And for
No problem.
all the students just now joining us, so we have Stephen Bro, who is with Stephen. What company are you with again, so I can make sure I have that right?
I work as project controls with ISC.
Awesome. And we have Abby that works with you as well on here.
I work at MMR. I'm a recruiter at MMR.
Sorry, thought that y'all work together. And then Adam Landry, you work at Palo, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the tank operations manager for Palo.
And Katie, you work at Excel, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen Bro, and he's going to let you know about questions. If anyone has any, you can ask any one of our panel, as well as if you don't want to ask it with your voice, you can text me, or I'm sorry, you can go in the chat and you can message out to me and I can ask the question for you. So I'm going to turn that back over to Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. And before we even start the questions, I just want to thank you for helping out. Jessica's our operations coordinator. And also on this call, I'd also like to thank Elizabeth Marchand, who's your CSA president, who has done a lot for the construction management department, helping set all this up, as well as Bria Sosa, who's been in charge of a bunch of the social media. It's been awesome this year. It's really helpful to a lot of people. So just want to thank those people. But yes, if you have questions, feel free to chime in. If it gets a little jumbled, then feel free to send it in the chat, and Jessica will kind of relay the messages as so.
Okay, I have a question for you, Stephen.
Yep, go ahead.
So my GPA isn't the greatest. I have like a 2.6. It definitely wasn't the highlight of my college career. What would be a good way to kind of spin that and maybe explain it away a little bit?
So I'll take that question. That's no problem. And if we're going to be honest, I did not have the best GPA in the world neither. While that does play a factor in some things, that's not the only thing recruiters look for. So, I mean, I have negative aspects about myself or characteristics that I'm working on, and GPA is one of them. That's okay. Some people learn differently. That's not a problem. So more focus on what you're better at and what's your better abilities and your strengths. And that's how you can turn it, rather than just focusing on your negative or your weaknesses only.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Alex, I also think that it's important to talk about what else you did. Say that you already had an internship, or say that you have been working outside of school. I know mine wasn't too well. GPA wasn't that great, but I was working 2 jobs to go through school. So that's just something, just kind of think about your experience in, college is classwork, but also we're trying to get you an internship so you can put that into motion. And so it's just something to think about as well. I wouldn't count yourself out just because of your GPA. Sometimes if GPA is an issue, you can talk about your actual classes for construction management. Sometimes those GPAs of those classes are a little bit better. That you can show that, hey, I'm not the best at arts or English, but my construction management classes, I've been getting this GPA. But I would go bring it back to the team. I don't know if that's really talked about in the actual face-to-face, but that's just something to think about.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I had a question kind of about GPA also. So my major GPA is a little bit better than my normal GPA, like my just overall. Is it good to distinguish on your resume if it's your major GPA or your overall GPA?
Adam, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I actually did that on mine. Similar, I kind of didn't know what kind of path I wanted to take. Early parts of college, kind of bounce around a few different majors. So I mean, yeah, I think that's fine. It's a good highlight. So if you've got your core classes are better, yeah, why not? Why not put it on there? Why not make it a talking point? You can kind of spin it and just say, look, this is when I found something that I like to do, and I enjoyed these classes, and I did better in them, and you can talk about it that way.
But so it's better for me to, should I say that it's my major GPA? Because I had an interview a couple weeks ago, and when she saw my GPA, she kind of said, oh, well, how's it this? And I said, I just had to say, oh, well, it's my major, so it's weighted differently.
Yeah, I mean, I had it on mine, but it's going to be, I mean, some companies are going to want to see both, and they're going to really focus on it. And some are going to be fine, without ever knowing what it is. So it's kind of, there's no one size answer for that one. So.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I would put it that if it's your GPA for all of your classes, would be a correct or except for the C. I'm sorry. Your whole GPA where. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. If it was just your major, you put major GPA and put your GPA. Yeah. I've seen that on resumes as well. So.
I have a question. I have not had an internship yet, and so I feel like going into these interviews, I don't have much to talk about myself, as in just school, and even school. Like I think Alex said, GPA isn't great. All I do right now is just school and work. But what should I expect? I don't have many skills. I've never had a internship. So what should I expect?
What grade are you?
All right, you go ahead.
Oh no, I'm gonna let you have it for you. And
I'm a junior.
I guess, yeah. What grade are a junior?
Yes. Well, I technically a junior, but I changed my major about 4 times.
And no, so I'm with you. I did the same thing. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I guess in the construction management, I'm considered a sophomore, but I've been in college for about 3 years now.
Yeah, and that's fine. And you mentioned already that, you're working while going to school. So, I mean, obviously you're learning, through that work and through school, and you might be involved in some other extracurriculars outside of school, or maybe some volunteer opportunities. Just because it's not an internship in construction doesn't mean you haven't learned anything, right? Doesn't mean you're not learning to work in the real world, right? So find some things that you have learned and the work that you are doing, and just focus on those. And you can be honest with them and say, look, I'm looking for an internship to get that next level of experience. If that's something you want to do, this is what I've got now, but I think it's better for you to be honest with them and highlight what you have learned and just go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what Adam said too, just because you never had an internship doesn't mean that these companies aren't looking for a first-time intern. I mean, a lot of these companies, sometimes they don't mind getting a first-time intern because they can kind of mold them exactly kind of how they want their students to turn out. So don't feel like that, hey, because you hadn't had one yet, that you don't have a chance of getting it. Because like I said, there's some entry-level positions that some companies are actually looking for. So like Adam said, just be honest, and I mean, that's all you can do, and it's no worries at all.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Adam was talking about taking notes and stuff about the company and kind of maybe concepts of what you want to talk about. Is it frowned upon to, I guess, reference your notes during an interview, or would you prefer us to have it all memorized, or not memorized, but know it.
I mean, maybe, look, I think and Abby, Steven, anybody else, please chime in, but to me, I mean, you want to have the basics of the company, right, memorized, but, the exact founding year, or a few little notes like that. If you want to put a small note where you can just kind of quickly look down at your page and without really breaking, you don't want to be reading and then like come up and ask them, maybe not. But if you can quickly hit something and it just kind of reminds you to how to talk to them and show them that you've got some basic knowledge of their company, I think that's fine. I mean, Abby, if y'all want to chime in.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine to have notes or to take notes in an interview. I would definitely say to kind of have like you said, like the basics down. You don't want to be looking like you're reading off of your notes, but especially like the questions that you have prepared, you could write those down so that you just don't forget them. I know I've done that before. And a lot of times the questions that you even prepare get answered throughout the course of the interview. So it's good to just have those backup questions as well. And you can definitely write those down. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Could y'all maybe give like a couple more examples of good questions to ask, like questions that maybe people have asked you in the past and you thought that was a good question? Because I always come up with some questions and they end up getting answered during the interview, and then by the end I don't really have anything left to ask. So yeah.
I would suggest just having more specific questions. Like I said earlier, if you go and research on their website and you see maybe some press releases of a project that they've just done, you could ask, like, what was your role in that project? What's been the best project y'all have worked on to date? Something that's just different, that's not the cookie cutter questions. Because a lot of the times, like the question that's like, what is it like day to day? That's a great question to have, but most likely you're going to cover that throughout the interview, because that's pretty much what it's about, is explaining the role of the job. So just think outside the box when it comes to questions sometimes.
I think another good question is, when we get asked, where have employees that have been in this position gone in their career? What is the next step for them, in this job? Like, what have they moved on to, within your company? I think that's always a really good question.
Okay, thank you. Those are great.
Also, if you get stuck, the great place to look outside of their website is their social media. So say like, oh, I saw that you got rewarded this, that's something that, that I would like to get into, or I saw this project, that sounds like a really cool project to get your hands on. That way it's just easy, and I mean, you kind of can flatter them that you've been seeing their social media outside their website as well. So that's just like a double point for you, that you look on their social media and you can talk about. You don't have to have like knowledge of it. You can just be like, I post it. Or like, I know that Lamar puts a lot about promotions on there. So that might be a good way for you to look to see about future promotions that they have and stuff. So just go to their social media as well as their website.
Okay, thank you.
What do we need to expect with the 10-minute one-on-ones on Thursday?
I think that it's just mostly getting to it's going to probably be very straightforward, just because of the time limitations. So it's going to move pretty quickly. So I would say just to get as much information as you can to who you're interviewing with.
Thank you.
I have a question. So as someone who's graduating and has kind of only applied for full-time positions post-grad, how appropriate is it to discuss like timeline during an interview, such as like when they would choose a candidate for position, or if I would be notified if I like didn't get it?
I mean, I'll jump in. I think it's fine to kind of, if the conversation's going well and everything, more than likely they'll kind of, I feel like most interviewers will kind of tell you, hey, this is timeline we're looking at. This is probably when you'll hear from us. And if they don't, I mean, feel free to just ask them, what's the timeline for this position when you're looking to fill? Is this something in, later in the summer, in the fall, or is this coming up? And it just gives you a general idea. I mean, that's how I would kind of approach it. I don't know if Katie or Abby, y'all would recommend something different, but that's how I would approach it. So.
No, I'd agree with that.
Thank you.
We have some time for some more questions if you want to have some. Trent White, it looks like you have your hand raised. I don't know if I did that or you did. Do you have a question?
Jessica, I don't know if you're working to figure out if you had a question or not, but I did just want to mention follow-up emails. It's totally appropriate to ask for, the business card of the person that you're interviewing with, and, the next day, next 2 or 3 days to follow up with them with an email and just, thank them for their time, thank them for the interview, maybe reiterate your interest in the job, and, let them know that you hope to hear from them. And, again, just kind of showing your interest, thanking them, being professional as a follow-up. And if you have something that you discussed during the interview that might be memorable, mention that, put it in the email if you can, but those always go a long way.
Okay, I have one more question. So I have a couple of like work samples from my internship, just like some plans that I created and details. And when it was in person, I would just bring them and so that we could talk about it. What would be kind of like the best way would it be better to just, say like I have some work samples and send that to them in the with a follow-up email after, or kind of like, how should I talk if I do want to like talk about that in the interview, if that's something that I should do? What would be the best way to kind of show them the work that I've done?
So in that situation, the way I would handle it is, I mean, if you want to bring it up because it's personal and that's one of your better attributes, then yes, wouldn't have a problem bringing it up. Just kind of be mindful too that you do only have 10 minutes, so you kind of don't want to spend all the time talking about that. You can also recommend that on your follow-up, say, hey, look, I had this personal work that I would like to show you. If you would want to follow up, I'd be glad to show you then as well. Just kind of offer some options. Don't just be like, hey, I have to show it here, or kind of feel how the interview's going. If you're running out of time, you know what I'm saying? Just say, hey, look, I'd love to follow up on some of the work that I've done. I'd love to show you on a follow-up email or something like that. I think that would kind of play it how to kind of feel how the interview is going. Don't always have to force it in there, but that's how I would handle that situation.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, something that you discussed during the interview and kind of jogging their memory on who you are, and they'll remember you when you send that over.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, I have another question also, and it's kind of about job offers and not the interview. But so what do I do if a company offers me something and I have another interview kind of in place, or I kind of want to see how something else goes? How do you say like you're interested, but you kind of want to like, you need time to think about it or something? I guess, how do you do that?
I would just let them know, you know, thank you for the offer. I'm really interested. Can I have a few days to think about it? You don't necessarily need to let them know you're considering another offer, but just ask for a few days to think about it.
Yeah, most of them be like a 3-day. They'll ask for a follow up or some along those lines. I mean, they understand. I mean, it's no different than anyone else interviewing for a job, or position being offered. Most of the time you'll have a couple of days to think about it. So just confirm that date with them and be punctual. So.
Okay, thank you.
I also something that was interesting. Did someone else have a question?
Yeah, I had a actual question for Miss Katie Burke. On one of her slides, she said, try not to just sit in front of a wall on your interview if possible. Could you maybe elaborate or explain why, and maybe give some tips on, what kind of background would you suggest then?
So when you sit in front of a wall, it's flat and it kind of looks like a mugshot for lack of a better term. Having some background when you're on a video screen, it's an opportunity really for you to kind of show some personality and who you are to a certain degree. It's not critical, but it's just, again, a chance for you to kind of stand out, be memorable, to show a little bit of who you are. Again, I don't think that you would miss a job offer for it, but sometimes it looks a little bit better to show that you put in effort and having that clean background, and you're in a space where you've set it up professionally and you're ready for your interview.
All right, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And I just wanted to understand some background behind it. Thanks.
Okay, Brian, it looks like you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
I do, if you don't mind. Obviously, I'm a non-traditional student working in graduate school, or started graduate school, and I currently have a good job, but I want to explore other options. How do you talk with an interviewer about, you're already committed in one job, but you're looking at leaving that job to pursuing, the higher education career choice? Because I'm a tradesman, I work in trades. And it's not like I can just go to work tomorrow and say, see ya. You'd have to make a transition from one job into that other position. What would be the best way to correlate that with the interview?
You said you work in the industry, Brian?
Yeah.
Right now? Okay. I'll let Adam or Abby or Katie and Stephen take that. But it actually is a great segue from the president. I was talking with the president of CIAC, Mark Bugler, and he said that it is very much a industry loyalty than a company loyalty. And so what he meant by that is that it's okay to be having an internship or a job with another company and admitting that and talking about that, where you're going to another company and saying like, I'm trying to explore my options. This is something we did here. I kind of want to do something there. And so trying to just keep that in the back of your mind that, of course, don't talk bad about your old company or anything to them, but he said to be like transparent, and that, their company or industry loyalty goes farther than like.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that because I do work for a really good company, but I'm kind of like at the top of the heap where I'm at now. So I've got to kind of make a transition somewhere else to continue on and advance my career. So that's really
Yeah, and I think, I mean, what Jessica mentioned about, obviously you don't want to speak poorly or, you know, about your company you're with, especially if you really enjoy it. Now, I think everyone, you know, has an understanding that at the end of the day, people are working to take care of their families. So if you want to better yourself and you might have a better opportunity, I mean, that's fine. You just be honest with them. I mean, but I'm sure you're at the same time being honest with the company you're with. You know, it's a balancing act, but I think as long as you remain professional, it's fine. So,
thank you guys. Appreciate the feedback.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I've had a question. So, for interviewers, what really makes or break an interview as far as consideration for the candidate?
I think that could be like any number of things just based on the company and what they're looking for. I don't know that there's one thing that would make or break something for one company that it might be something good for another company. The only thing I can say with that is just to be yourself and just put your best self forward, because that's all you can really do. You don't want to be somebody that you're not, and then, but at the end of the day, you want to find that match between you and the company. So if it just doesn't match up, then that's up to the employer and you both. So just something to consider with that.
Yeah, I agree with Abby, and just kind of add another little point too. The interview doesn't have to go exactly perfect. So it's not like if you say one thing, then oh, okay, this is an instant check mark. It's not gonna happen. Like she's saying, it's kind of a value of points throughout the whole interview. Is the interview is kind of taken as overall. So if you may say one thing that they disagree with, it's okay. It doesn't have to go absolutely perfect for it to work out. So just know that. Don't be too hard on yourself during an interview, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that, attitude is everything. I think that was kind of touched on here. But you know, somebody coming into a job that's straight out of college, that's capable and ready to learn, you know, that's the right attitude. And attitude is everything. You know, it's half the battle.
Thank you, Katie. I got a question in the chat. Brian asked, should I bring up that a family member for the company that I got an interview with?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I probably said it too fast. Should I bring up that a family member works for the companies that I got an interview with?
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, I would say that if your employer asks you for whatever reason, do you have any friends or family that work here? Then you could bring that up then. But like I said, that also just depends on the employer. It just depends.
Yeah, just to add to that, you also want to be careful that, you know, you're not kind of implying that you should get the job because you have a family member that works at the company. So just maybe be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree as well. You don't necessarily want to bring up. It's again, you have to kind of get a feel for the interview. And if it's a good talking point, and like they're saying, if they bring it up and hey, then look, we both know this guy, then it's fine. But yeah, but don't, again, like Katie said, don't imply anything because of it. But yeah, if it's a talking point, it's no problem at all.
Okay, does anyone have any more questions on the last call?
Yes, I have one more thing. So obviously, everyone kind of coming out of CM, everyone kind of has the same coursework and certifications that are built into the curriculum. Is there any certifications that you think would be worthwhile that would kind of stand out on a resume and set you apart from everyone else, kind of?
As far as, I'll take it for a second. As far as actual certifications, none. I mean, in particular, any certification again is good. Not saying it's bad, and I would gladly put on a resume. But as far as completely set apart, none that I'm aware of. But more or less, if not for certifications, just for field type experience. So hey, if I was going to apply for ISC and I had worked some summers as an electrician, electrician's helper, that kind of stuff goes far. Again, you don't have to have field work, but I would say that just as much as certifications, because at some point, if you're working for these companies, a lot of times you will have to do some of the labor to kind of know what you're getting into as well. So I think that's kind of one of a little key factor. Again, it's not mandatory, but it definitely helps in some cases.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would just chime in. I mean, so say if you hadn't worked in the industry, but you worked as a lifeguard or you did something, you had CPR certification. I mean, to me personally, I'd like to see that on there. It just kind of shows, hey, I've taken some classes outside of what I needed to hold these certs for this job. I mean, it's a good thing. Why not list it? I'm not sure which certs you get through CM anymore, but I don't think you need to go out tomorrow and go to a safety council and get an OSHA 30 or a 510 or something. So,
Okay, thank you. And one more thing I just kind of thought of. I know you said, Jessica said earlier about like loyalty to industry. I have some experience in the commercial industry sector, and I'm kind of interested now in going into residential. What would be a good way to kind of just explain that, I guess, and explain that I have this experience, but now I think I want to get something else, because it's like I really don't even know what I like, you know what I mean? So
I think industry really, I mean, it's outside of that. I think exactly like you said, that you had some time in the commercial industry, and now you want to go to this is time in college for you to experience different sides. So I think he really meant that as a way to show you that you don't have to do an internship with just one company your entire career. Your entire time in school. He just kind of mentioned that it's okay to start doing other stuff, get an internship in a field for different industries. I don't know if Adam, do you have another way about going about that?
I mean, if you got some commercial experience, I mean, construction is construction, whether you're doing commercial, industrial, residential. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still building something using labor, materials. You got your financial component, your safety component, your quality component. So whichever one it's in, you can apply, something from commercial to industrial. You can, apply a thought from industrial back to residential. I mean, it's all construction. So I think you're fine. You just say, hey, I've got this experience. I really I'm leaning towards going into residential for, whatever your reasoning is. And here's the items I've done on the commercial side that I think might be applicable over to residential. And you leave it there. So
one thing I think too to remember with that is that a lot of your skills are going to be transferable.
yes.
And so what you could do is start with your resume, and it was probably geared more towards one thing. And so you can go back to your resume and kind of rearrange the words or pick out certain things that could apply to the new area that you're looking to go into, just so that the person or the company that you apply to can see like, hey, they know how to do this. We also need them to do this. And so you don't have to be in one little box with your skills. A lot of things that you learn from one company can easily be transferred to another company in another area as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Brian, do you have a question again?
I do have another question. Like I said, for some of us that have worked in the industry for quite a while, how far back on our resume should we go? Is 10 years acceptable, or do we put on 20, 25, 30 years of experience that we have on resumes? And just looking for information from, most current kind of stuff.
I'll jump in first. I mean, how I would think you would handle it. I mean, I'm sure the other panelists kind of probably have some better answers than I would, but how I would approach it, I would just kind of have a summary statement. I've been in the industry since, whatever year you started. And then I would kind of only do relevant experience back to maybe 10 years, or something along those lines. So you don't want to get it too hard, and kind of let it be a talking point that, hey, I've been in the industry this long, and they'll kind of hit on that and you'll talk about it. That's how I would approach it. I don't know how everyone else would, but that'd be my input.
I would, same here too. I mean, maybe you can list if you happen to go, if you're going farther back and you have some 1 or 2 major events you want to list in there, that's fine. But no, I wouldn't have to go back and list every single detail from the last 30. Like I said, maybe you got some really good talking points in there, like, hey, I worked this huge project, which is very impressive, or it's a great talking point. But other than that, no, I'd stay more recent, and like Adam said, just kind of put an overall summary is the way I'd do it as well.
All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, I would just suggest putting it, if you have, again, kind of piggybacking off that, a professional summary, 20 years experience in the industry as a, yada, 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 and, some of the high points of what you've done. And just put that at the top of your resume, so it's clear and it shows that, again, you've got loyalty, to the industry.
Good deal. Sounds like I got some revisions to make. Thank you all.
Leslie?
Hi, I had a question. I'm not a traditional student. I do have a kid, and I just want to know if you think it's appropriate to bring that up in an interview, or should I just leave that out from the interview, during the interview?
To answer your question, I think it's really admirable that, you're raising a child and, pursuing your education, but, you really want to keep the interview focused on, your skills and education and any experience that you may have. So I would just stick to that.
Thank you.
All right, guys, if there's no more, is there any more questions? I heard someone. Okay, so right before we get off, I want to thank our panelists again. Thank you very much, Stephen, Adam, Katie, and Abby, for taking time and meeting with our students. I also wanted to give some quick little pointers. We talked a lot about resume. If you feel like your resume needs a one-over or needs help building it, say you already have one, but you want kind of to improve it, go out to the Olin Career Center and they will actually help you. They'll walk you through it. They might even help you with a headshot. That's something that you can definitely talk to them about. Talk to your instructors as well. They're in the industry as well. And so if you have any questions, they're definitely a great person to reach out to, and they'll be happy to And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the industry also talks to the professors as well, so they might have insights too. And so I just got a question about the attendance. And so how you're going to get your attendance, if you are on a computer, if you can go to the chat right now and put your name and your email address, that's how you'll be accounted for attendance. If you aren't on your computer, on your phone, please take a screenshot or a snapshot of you on this call and send it to cm@lsu.edu. And I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen, but thank you guys a lot for being here.
No, I think that's all. Like I just said, and appreciate everybody, all the participation and questions, and thank you to all the panel. But other than that, I appreciate it, and y'all have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.